Welcome to Everything Improvised. I'm CA, and today in this video I'm going to show you how you can use VS Code if you are an absolute beginner. So watch this video till end and let's get started. So VS Code or Visual Studio Code is a very powerful and popular text editor developed by Microsoft. If you use VS Code as a developer, it will increase your productivity and also decrease the time taken by you to create programs. It comes with an extensive collection of extensions which you can use in order to customize the way how you interact with VS Code and do your programming. So in this video, I'm going to show you what are the basic things that you need to know if you are getting started with VS Code. So let's first open VS Code. I assume that you have already installed VS Code, but if not, then you can watch one of my videos that I've uploaded on my channel for the installation of VS Code. I will be giving the link of that video in the info cards above as well as in the description, so you can watch that video if you want to install VS Code. So when you open VS Code, it will look something like this if you don't have any project opened. So what are projects, we will be going to discuss further in this video. So this is the interface of VS Code. So let's first understand what the visuals of Visual Studio are. So this thing right here is known as the sidebar, and it contains the different settings here which we are going to discuss further. This topmost thing here is known as a menu bar. So it gives all of the menu options that you would need somehow in VS Code. And this bottom bar is known as the status bar, right? So this is very important and it shows the different status of VS Code. For example, if you have got any errors, it will show the different extensions that are active currently, and also your notifications, like if there is any update or any other thing like that. And this large thing that covers whole of my screen is known as the workspace. So each and every file that you are going to open in VS Code will be shown in the workspace here, or any other thing that is open, right? It will be showing in this workspace. So let's get an introduction of the sidebar. This is the panel that you are going to use most of the time. So this thing here is known as the Explorer panel. So when you click over it, it will show you all of the files, all of the folders that are currently present in the current folder or the project that you have opened in VS Code for now. So we are going to know about projects later. So let's just keep that in mind. And this thing is the advanced search of VS Code. So with the help of this, you can search for some terms or some text or some file names right within the VS Code itself, and also you can replace the names. For example, if you want to change the name of your variable all across your code, so what you can do is you can just search it over here and then you can just give the replacement of that particular thing here. It also supports multiple filters right here, so we are not going to look into those for now. So this thing here is known as a source control panel, and this lets you control your version controlling of your project. So if you are using Git in your project, so this is what you are going to need most of the time to manage your project, right? But we are not going to use this for now because we are just going through the beginner tutorial. This thing here is known as the run and debug panel, and here you will be going to run your programs. For example, if you wrote any Python or C++ code or any other language code, so you will come here and then you will use this thing here in order to run your programs within the VS Code. This thing here is known as the extensions panel, and here is the main power of VS Code. So here you can search for any of the extensions from the VS Code marketplace. So for example, if I search for bracket, it will show all of the extensions that match with my current search key. So we are going to see what this is in a minute, so don't worry for now. So this was a very brief introduction of this left panel here. So one more thing is that if you click the highlighted button again, it will hide that panel, right? The shortcut key in order to hide this panel is Ctrl+B. So whenever you press this combination, it will show or hide this side panel here, right? Also, in the top right corner, you can just click on this icon in order to show the sidebar. So it is just a toggle feature if you want space in the workspace here. So this thing here is the account settings. I'm not going to show you this thing in this video, but we will be talking about it later in some video, right? This thing here is known as the settings of VS Code, and if you click on it, you will be having all of the settings that are required to customize VS Code experience. So this is known as the command palette. If you click on it, it will open up this small thing, which is a really very powerful thing of VS Code. You can search anything in this command palette, from running any code to changing settings of any extension or changing any custom setting of VS Code and lots of other features, right? And again, going to this set gear icon, there is this settings option. If you click on it, you will be opened with the VS Code settings. So each and every settings related to VS Code itself, and also the settings related to the extensions that you have installed, it will all be shown in this panel. So we are going to see this also later in this video. So I'll just close it. Now again, going to manage, there is extensions. So it will right away open up this extensions manager here. So not much of a surprise. This is keyboard shortcut settings. So when you click on it, it will show you each and every shortcut key that are assigned to VS Code. So if you want to know about any shortcut key, you can just come here and have a look at the shortcut key lists present here. So it's a very large collection of shortcuts here. You can also assign shortcut key to the settings that are currently not having any key binding right here. So I'll just close this keyboard shortcuts panel also. I'll go to gear icon again, and there are other settings also that we are going to see later. Also, one thing that I want to show you is check for updates. So you should regularly check for updates in VS Code and keep your VS Code up to date. But by default, VS Code does it automatically. So most of the time you don't have to worry about it. But I'll just suggest to check for updates whenever possible. So it is showing that there are no currently updates. So my VS Code is up to date for now, right? So this was a really brief introduction of VS Code, or you can say the things that we are currently seeing on the screen. Now, for the top bar, there are some things here. So I just already told you about this. This is the toggle for the sidebar. This is something that you are going to need. If you click on it, it will open up this bottom panel right here, which contains the terminal of VS Code. So this is actually the command prompt or the PowerShell or the bash or any other command line interface that you are working with in VS Code. So you can just change it here, right? If I click on this drop down menu, you can just select which of the terminal you want. If you want command prompt, if you want git bash, if you want JavaScript debug terminal, or you want PowerShell or something else which you have installed on your system. This is output panel. So some programs or some extensions that generate custom outputs will be shown here in this output panel. Problems, these things show the errors or any other problem that the workspace contains right here. So the shortcut key for this panel is control plus backtick. So if you press that combination, it will just close and open up the bottom panel, or you can just click on this icon also in order to toggle that. And this one is the customized layout. So if you click on it, it will show you all of the different customization options that you have in VS Code. Now let's get to the menu bar. So menu bar contains all of the things that are related to the application, right? So the very first thing that we are going to see is the file menu. So it contains all of the things that are related to the file system of VS Code, you can say. So the first option will create a new text file. So if you click on it, it will open up this untitled file, which doesn't have any extension or any by default configurations. So you just need to select the language, or you can just save it as any file. So you can just see in the status bar that we are also getting the state of the cursor, right, where my cursor is present. So it is showing that my cursor is present on line 1, column 1. So let's write something here, and you can see that it is showing now line number 3, column number 12. So this will show where the cursor is present actually. This is known as the indentation. So if you click on it, you can just change the different settings related to the indentation. It is showing that by default the indentation is 4 spaces, right? So for example, if I write something and if I press tab, so you can see that we have moved 4 spaces, right? We have moved 4 spaces ahead. You can also change the behavior by clicking on it, and then you can click on this indent using spaces or indent using tabs, any of those options, and then you can just select the width of the indent. For example, if I choose 2, so the next indent that I will end up with will be of 2 spaces, right? It will be of 2 spaces. So this is something that you will understand if you are working with any white space sensitive language such as Python, right? So this is the encoding. So by default it is the UTF-8, which we don't really will be dealing with. So in most of the cases, right, you will be using UTF-8. So this is the language mode. So this will tell VS Code which language you are currently working on it, like which language your current text file is of. So it is saying plain text. So it is just a text file, right? So if you click on it, VS Code will provide you a bunch of languages that you can select from. So let's just press escape and we will be going out of that. So this is something that comes here after you install an extension. So we are not going to look into that. This is also something that comes from the extension, which I'm not going to discuss now. These two things we don't need, right? So now we have seen how to create a file, right? But we have just created the file, but we have not yet saved this file. So for saving the file, what you can press is Ctrl plus S, or you can just go to the file menu and then you can just click on save or save as, anything you like. You know what save and save as is. So I will click on save and it will open up this dialog box. So I will go to desktop and I'll just create a new folder, that means VS Code tutorials. I'll move into that folder and then I will just select the name of my file. For example, I choose demo. So a very important note here is that after choosing the file name, you need to choose the file extension also. So the file extension tells VS Code what type of a file you are working on, and so VS Code will provide the depending features according to that file. So I'll just save it as any file. Let's just show you for txt file. So I'll just save it as txt and it will save this file as a text file, right? So if I click on this Explorer option, you can see we are not getting anything here. This option is useful only if you open a folder in VS Code as a project, right? So let's just see what this is. We are done with creating a file, right? Let's just close this. So now let's open a folder as a VS Code project, right? So for that, what you can just do is click on file and then you need to click on open folder. Okay, you can also open a file. For example, if we click on open file, you can just choose the location where your file is present. So I will just open that demo.txt file only. Double click on it and you can see that we have just opened that file in VS Code. So to open folder, just click on file, click on open folder, or you can also just click on this explorer and click on open folder here if currently there is no folder opened in VS Code. So if you click on that, or you can just click from file and then click on open folder, and then you need to choose the location of the folder that you want to open, right? So let's go to desktop, and just now I've just created VS Code tutorial named folder. So I'll just click on that and I'll click on select folder. So now you can see that VS Code has opened that folder as a VS Code project. So now you will understand the concept of project in a VS Code. So what is a project in VS Code? So any folder that you open in VS Code becomes a VS Code project. So now you can see that in the Explorer tab here, we are getting something different, right? So you can see that this is the name of my folder that I've just opened, and these are the contents of my folder. So I've just created only one file and it is showing that file in the file tree here, right? So this is known as the file tree. So you can just select any of the things that are present in this file tree, right? So now the main thing of VS Code happens here. With the help of this Explorer tab in VS Code, we can do much powerful things here. So you can see that there are four options here, right? So the first one is the create file. So this will automatically create a file inside the location that is currently selected. So because my current location is this folder only, VS Code tutorial folder only. So anything that I will create here will be created directly under the VS Code tutorial folder. So let's just click on it and let's just give it as main.cpp. So I'll just create a cpp file, C++ file, right? So what I've done is I've just click on this folder and now I will be needing to enter the name. So let's just give it any name, for example, awesome. So this is my file name and now I need to give the file extension also. So let's just give it .py. So this is a Python file. So it will create another file here. So you can see that we have multiple files open in the VS Code workspace, which we can choose from by selecting the respective tab here, right? So you can see that we can just work on two different files simultaneously. For example, if I write any C++ code here, so you can see that we can just navigate to the awesome.py file and here we can write our Python file simultaneously. So you can see that we have just created a Python file with some Python code, and we have just created a C++ file with some C++ code. So you can work with different files simultaneously on VS Code. Okay, one more thing that is very interesting is that you can just drag this file. So you can just drag this file and move it to change the position in which it appears in this workspace, right? So you can just see that I can move the position of this awesome.py. So let's just open one more file in the workspace. So in order to open a new file inside the workspace, what you can do is just you can drag that file and drop it over here. So you can see that we are now having three files, right? And now if I want to change the position here, so I can just drag that particular file tab and I can just drop it anywhere here. So this will just reposition all of the tabs. Now one more thing that you might find interesting is you can drop any file in the workspace to open it in a split window. What this means is, let's just drag this and let's just drop it here. It just opened that file in a split window. So you can just work on two different files simultaneously with both of them being in the same view, right? So this is a very awesome feature that I love to use each and every time. You can also organize more files in the same view. So for example, I want to open this file again in split window. What I can do is I can just drag here. So you can see if I drag here, it highlights that part of the screen. This means that it will open up this here in the third window. So there are three splits in my VS Code. I want to combine this back. So what I can do is just drag and drop it here, drag and drop it here. So it will combine all of the tabs again. You can also play around with different places. So if I move up here, it will open up in the top. If I move it right, it will open up in the side panel. If we drop it here, it will open up in the down. If we drag it again, if we can open it in the third split window. So these are the ways by which you can organize the VS Code splits. So these are very important if you want to work with multiple files simultaneously. So let's just close each and every file. So just click on this X icon to close all of the files that are present, right? You can also create a file by double clicking on this panel here. So just double click on it and you can see that we are getting an option to create a new file. So let's just create a new file, that is hello.rs. So it has just created a new file again. You can also create a new file by right clicking on it and then clicking on new file, right? So there are many ways by which you can create new files. Another thing that VS Code provides us is creating a new folder inside the project folder, right? So you can see that it is being highlighted with blue outline. This means that our VS Code project folder has been selected by default. So if you click any of these two things, it will create a file or a folder in the current outlined thing, that is our VS Code tutorial folder. If we click on this icon here, what this will do is it will create a new folder with the name that we give it. So let's just give it a name as dir1. So this is the folder that we just created with the help of this icon here. If we navigate to that file manager here, you can see that we just got a new folder here, right, which is empty actually. So let's get back to VS Code. Now you can see that because this folder is actually empty, we don't get to see anything inside it. So let's create a file inside this folder. So if this thing is visual, that is this outlined window, this means that your VS Code tutorial folder is selected, or the project folder is selected. So if you click on the file or any folder, it will create that file or folder right inside the project folder. But if you want to create a file or a folder inside a different folder that is present in project of VS Code, then what you can do is just select that folder, that is select the folder in which you want to create another folder or file, and then you need to click on these any icons. So if I click on this new file, it will create a new file in the dir1 folder. So let's give it a name as file.c. So this is a C file. So this created a new file and it also opened it in my workspace that I don't want. So you can see that this file has been created inside the dir1 folder that is present inside the project folder. So if I click on it, you can see that it has been collapsed, right? So you can just click on that folder in order to show content of the folders, right? So let's create a new folder inside it. So you can see that my folder is selected because it is highlighted now. I can just click on this new folder icon here and it will create another folder. So I can give it a name as new. So I just created a folder named new in dir1 folder. So this created another folder. So this is something that you might find useful regarding the file structure of or file tree of VS Code, right? So it's very good that you get very much familiar with everything what is happening in the Explorer panel here, right? So there are two more icons here. This one is the refresh icon. So this will just refresh the file explorer here. And this thing here is known as the collapse folders in Explorer. What this means is, suppose we have all of the folders expanded, right? We have a very large project and we have lots of folders inside it, and many of them are like expanded, right? But we want to collapse all of them at one go. So what we can do is just we can click on it, and what this will do is it will collapse each and every folder that is opened. I can just show an example. So this is one of my projects that I just created. So you can see that there are lots of folders present inside my project. So if I expand each and everything right here, it becomes very much difficult to go to each and every folder and collapse it one by one. So what VS Code provides us is with this thing to collapse everything at once. So if we click on it, you can see that everything gets collapsed and we are organized again. So this is very useful and you will need it many times in your development phase. So we have just gone through all of the icons present here. So we have seen how to open a project in VS Code by clicking on file and then clicking on open folder. Let's see how to close a project in VS Code. So what you can do is click on file and then click on close folder. So what this will do is, so this will close the folder that was currently opened as the project in VS Code. So let's have the look at the search in VS Code. So for that you'll have to click on the search icon here, and then in the first box what you'll have to do is you'll have to write the search keyword, right? So for example, if I write container, so it will search whole of the project in every file for the keyword container, right? So it's showing three files which have the container word in it. So you can just expand or collapse the files for the words. You can also like replace the word with another word. For example, I will replace container with new container. So you can see the changes in real time here. The search can be case sensitive or case insensitive. For example, if I just make the C capital in container, you can see that the search is case insensitive. But as soon as I click on this thing here, what this will do is it will make the search case sensitive. Okay, so it will search for all of the containers with the C capital in it. So this is something that will be helpful for you. Okay, so what I can do is I can click on this particular button here, and what this will, it will ask for me if I want to replace every occurrence of container with the new container word. Okay, so I'll click on replace and you can see that the searches are gone. So what this did is it replaced all of the containers with the new container. So I'll just search for new container. You can see that everything was replaced with the new keyword. By default, the search is for the whole project folder, but you can also include or exclude particular files. For example, if you click on these three dots here, you can just include the files here, or you can exclude the files. This supports regular expressions, so you can just use the while character here. For example, I want to search in every HTML file but not the CSS files. So what I can do is I can include all of the HTML files, and you can see that there is only one HTML file that contains this particular keyword in there. For example, I want to search in all of the JavaScript files, so you can see that there is only one JavaScript file with that. And suppose I want to just exclude a CSS file, so I can just exclude the CSS file from here. So you can see that the CSS file was excluded from the search. So this is how you can just make your search more advanced with the help of VS Code. Version control is out of the scope for this video, but we will be discussing about it later in some of my video. So now comes the run and debug option here. So this will be for running your code. This is just a VS Code tutorial, but not any language tutorial. I will not be going to show how this works. But yes, if you want to run any file, for example, if you want to run any Python file or a CPP file or a C file or any other file, To get the output, you can just click on this run and debug button and just select all of the options that will be occurring here in order to run your file, right? This depends upon the different files of the different programming languages, so will totally depend upon the programming language that you're using, right? And now comes the extensions. This is one of my favorite things to use. So what are extensions? So extensions are that piece of software that add extra functionality to VS Code, right? So for example, if there is a feature missing that might be very useful for you, for example, the syntax highlighting, or you can say the theme. So the best example is a theme. So if you want to change the theme, that how VS Code looks, what are the colors of the icons, what you can do is you can just change the icons, you can change the themes, you can change everything about VS Code with the help of extensions. You can install extensions and set that up in order to change how VS Code works, right? So I have these file icons extension installed. So this adds a bunch of different icons to VS Code. So you can see that the icons of every file is different from what you will see in your VS Code. So this is all because of this extension. So I think you might have got a basic idea of how powerful extensions are, right? So depending upon the type of work that you're doing, you're going to install extensions based on that. And here in the top, you can see the currently installed extensions that are present in VS Code for now. Here you can see the recommended extensions. It will recommend extensions based on the work you do on VS Code, so it will change dynamically. And here is the search bar. You can search for any extension, right? So let's just search for any C++ extension. So if you search for C++, it will give all of the extensions that are related to C++. You can just choose any of those and you can just install it depending upon your work, right? Okay, one more thing about sidebar is you can just expand the sidebar. So you can just hover over this, and if this arrow icon occurs, you can just drag to change the size of this sidebar, right? So this is what extensions are, and this is known as testing. So testing is also optional and will appear depending upon the extension that you're installing. So I have Python extension installed, so it has the testing feature by default, so it opens up this testing thing here. So we have discussed lots of things about VS Code. So let's just discuss about the terminal, right? So we have the terminal thing in VS Code that is very useful. So you can just click on it and then click on run new terminal. It will open up the terminal in VS Code, right? So terminal is something that you will be needing 99% of the times when you're working on VS Code or if you are programming, right? So if you are a programmer, you know what terminal is. So by default, the terminal that VS Code opens into is the PowerShell. So this is the PowerShell terminal that you will be opening by default in VS Code. It has different configurations for the terminal. So by default, it will open up the PowerShell terminal. In order to change the terminal, what you can do is just you can click on the drop down menu and then select the terminal manually. So if I click on command prompt here, it will open up a new terminal, that is, it will create a new terminal, that is command prompt. So if some of you don't know what command prompt is, so you can just go to Windows Start menu and then search for CMD, and this is what a command prompt window is. So this black screen with white text is known as command prompt. Okay, so now there are more options here. So many of you might not get this git bash option here because I have git installed. That's why it is showing up the git bash terminal also here. So you don't need to know what this is. You just need to know what command prompt is and what PowerShell is, right? So this and this. Okay, along with the split screen that we get in the text editor, we get split screen in terminal also. So for example, if you are running multiple commands in multiple terminal windows, so what you can do is you can just open up all of those as a split screen, right? So you can just drag the terminal and drop it into here. So it will open this up in split screen. In order to create a new terminal, what you can do is you can just click on this plus icon and it will open up the default terminal configuration, that is PowerShell in many of your cases. But if you change PowerShell to any other, it will open up the default terminal, right? In my case, it is command prompt. In a newly installed VS Code, the default configuration is PowerShell. So whenever you open terminal, it will open up by default the default configuration. So if you click on the plus icon, it will open up the default configuration, right? If you want to remove or if you want to kill any terminal, that is if you want to delete any terminal, you can just go over here and you can just click on this delete button here, so it will kill that terminal. So I will just kill all of the terminals here. We have seen almost everything in VS Code which you will be needing as a beginner. Now I have some settings, predefined settings that I find very useful, and I set it up every time I install VS Code. So just go to this gear icon here and then click on this settings, and you can see that we have got all other settings of VS Code right here. A very useful setting that I find very important is auto save. So what this will do is it will automatically save the files that you are creating. So what I find useful is on focus change. So what this will do is whenever you edit some files, it will get saved as soon as you move out of that file. For example, if I go to any other tab here, or let's do some changes, or if you navigate to any other thing, it will automatically save that file. The second setting is the font size. So by default the font size of the code is 14, so this is very small. If you are having a larger resolution screen, you can always change it to any other value. So if I choose 20 and I press enter, you can see that the font size increased. You can set it up depending upon your comfort zone. Another thing is the default tab size. So by default the tab size is 4. So what tab was, if you press tab, the amount of space that it moves the cursor away is known as the tabs, right? So by default it is 4, and I like to use tab size of 2. So if I press tab, it will just move 2 spaces ahead. It totally depends upon your comfort zone, so you can change it depending upon your preference. And other one is the word wrap feature. So word wrap is something like if your file goes beyond the view, like let's just create something. So you can just see that we have written lots of words in the same line, so it gets overflowed. So we need to scroll it vertically. So this creates problems sometimes if we have a code which contains longer lines. What you can do is you can just turn on word wrap. So just click on it and click on. What this will do is it will wrap the lines. So whatever text goes beyond the width of the screen, it will just display in the next line, right? So another setting is related to the terminal. So by default, VS Code gives us the PowerShell as the default terminal, but I like to use command prompt as my default terminal. So for that, what you can do is you can just click on this to toggle the terminal, and then you can just click on this drop down, and then click on select default profile. If you click on that, it will ask you to select the default configuration for your terminal. So I love to use command prompt always, so I will just choose command prompt. If you are new, I would suggest you to use command prompt. So you can just select command prompt or any other thing if you know what these are. And so it will select that particular profile as the default terminal. So if you create a new terminal, it will just create the terminal with the default settings, that is our command prompt. So there are a few shortcuts that I would like to show you. So the very first shortcut for the VS Code that I've already shown you is toggle the sidebar. So if you want to show or hide the sidebar, you can just press the shortcut as Ctrl plus B. So it will automatically toggle the sidebar. The second shortcut is also that I have shown you is to toggle the terminal. So for that it is Ctrl plus backtick. So it will automatically show or hide the terminal. Other shortcut is related to this file explorer here. So if you want to rename a file or a folder, right? If you want to rename a file or a folder, what you can do is just select that thing here, and then you can just press F2, and this will automatically let you rename your file. So same goes with the folder also. One more shortcut, or you can say a feature of VS Code, is edit multiple lines at once. So you can see that currently our cursor is only present at this number 4 line, right? But what if I want to add a particular text in all of the lines or multiple lines at once? What we can do is you can just hold Alt button. So just press it and hold it, and then wherever you click, a new cursor will get added. So you can see that I can add multiple cursors at once. And if I add something, like if I press any key, you can see that the text is getting added at all of the cursors. So if you want to remove a cursor from a particular part, you need to do the same. You need to press and hold the Alt key, and then you need to click on the cursor that you want to remove. So I want to remove this cursor. So if I click on it, that cursor gets removed. If I click on it, this cursor gets removed. And similarly, you can click all of the cursors, right? Okay, you can also add multiple cursors in the same line. right? If you want to add a cursor in the same line, for that what you can do is you can just select the place from where you need to start adding the cursor, and then you need to press and hold the mouse wheel of your mouse, and you need to drag. And also if you drag horizontally, you can see that the text are getting selected at once. So let's just start it from here. So if I press and hold the mouse wheel and I drag down, you can see multiple cursors getting added. And if I drag left or right, you can see that we can select multiple texts at once. And if you want to replace a particular text, you can just press the key and it will get added. So these are the things that you will be needing while developing a program. Also, you can right click on the text editor, and then there are multiple settings that you might get depending upon the type of the file that you're working on. So this is because a simple file, you're not getting much of the things here. If we are going to any program related file, you can just see that there are many other options that we can get in this context menu, which you can use, right? So these are the things that I thought will be very useful to you. If I miss something, you can just comment them down so I can just explain them in the next version of this video. So there is a list of extensions that I want you to install in VS Code. So you just need to go to extensions panel here. I just click on it here so that it removes this search key here. So these are the installed extensions, right? So depending on the file that you're working on, there are a list of extensions that you might find useful. So let's see for C++. So for C++, there are three extensions that we need to install. So the first one is the C++ extension. So search for C++, and then you need to install this extension. So this is the extension that you need to install. There is another extension related to C++ that will install three extensions at once. We don't need that. We just need to install this one. You need to also install code runner extension. Just search for code runner and install this extension. And the third extension is better C++ syntax. So if you search for better C++ syntax, so this is the extension that you need to install for C++. Same goes with C also. So C and C++ extensions are the same. If you need Python, VS Code will automatically add Python extensions. So if you create any file, VS Code will automatically show you the pop-up for the type of file that you want. So you can just click on install and it will automatically install the required extensions for the particular file that you have created in VS Code. If you're working with version control system, that is Git, then the extensions that you might need are Git history. So you can just install this extension. You can install the Git ignore. So just install the Git ignore extension. So these two are the extensions that I use most. And the third one is the markdown. So markdown extension is something that you will need if you're working with the markdown files. Mainly we use markdown in Git only, so I've shown it in Git, right? Okay, so for Java, what you can do is search for Java, and then what you need to do is just install the language support for Java. So this one is the thing that you need to install, that is the language support for Java. You need to install code runner for Java. So code runner is a very awesome extension that you will be needing most of the time, right? So for C++, for Java, for C, you will be needing code runner extension. So these are the extensions that I think will be very helpful for you if you are working in web development. So the extensions for those are live server. So this is the extension that you will be needing, live server. Then auto rename tag, auto close tag. These two extensions you will be needing. So these were the most popular and most required extensions for the most popular development languages that you will be using. Okay, one universal extension that you might need always is Prettier. So just search for Prettier code formatter and then you will be getting this extension. So just install this Prettier code formatter, right? So this is very important extension which will help you write clean code. So just install it, and that's all. So I've shown almost all of the important extensions that we'll be needing in your development, and depending upon your work, you can install other extensions too. VS Code has a very large community, so if you have any doubt or if you want to know anything or any different feature, you can just perform a Google search. So you can just go to Chrome or any other web browser and search for the thing, and you'll get the solution. So this was all for this video. I hope this video was very helpful for you. If I missed out anything, you can just comment them down. So I'll just compile all of them and I'll try to make up a separate video for that. So if this video was helpful, don't forget to leave a like. And if you didn't like this video, you can just dislike the video. Also, if you want to get updated with this channel, just click on the subscribe button so that you get all of the notifications related to my channel. So I'll just leave you here. Happy coding journey, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.